War and Peace, Book 10, Chapter 25, read for LibriVox.org, by Jeff. Chapter 25. The officers were about to take leave, but Prince Andrew, apparently reluctant to be left alone with his friend, asked them to stay and have tea. Seats were brought in, and so was the tea. The officers gazed with surprise at Pierre's huge, stout figure, and listened to his talk of Mexico and the position of our army, round which he had ridden. Prince Andrew remained silent, and his expression was so forbidding that Pierre addressed his remarks cheerfully to the good-natured battalion commander. "So you understand the whole position of our troops?" Prince Andrew interrupted him. "Yes, that is. How do you mean?" said Pierre. "Not being a military man, I can't say I have understood it fully, but I understand the general position." "Well, then, you know more than anyone else, be it who it may," said Prince Andrew. "Oh," said Pierre, looking over his spectacles in perplexity at Prince Andrew. "Well, and what do you think of Kutuzov's appointment?" he asked. "I was very glad of his appointment, that's all I know," replied Prince Andrew. "And tell me your opinion of Barclay de Tolly. In Moscow they are saying heaven knows what about him. What do you think of him?" "Ask them," replied Prince Andrew, indicating the officers. Pierre looked at Timókhin with the condescendingly interrogative smile with which everybody involuntarily addressed that officer. "We see light again, since his Serenity has been appointed, Your Excellency," said Timókhin timidly, and continually turning to glance at his colonel. "Why so?" asked Pierre. "Well, to mention only firewood and fodder, let me inform you. Why, when we were retreating from Svenziani, we dared not touch a stick or a wisp of hay or anything. You see, we were going away, so he would get it out. Wasn't it so, Your Excellency?" And again Timókhin turned to the prince. "But we daren't. In our regiment 2 officers were court-martialed for that kind of thing. When His Serenity took command, everything became straightforward. Now we see light." "Then why was it forbidden?" Timókhin looked about in confusion, not knowing what or how to answer such a question. Pierre put the same question to Prince Andrew. "Why, so as not to lay waste the country we were abandoning to the enemy," said Prince Andrew with venomous irony. "It is very sound. One can't permit the land to be pillaged and accustomed to the troops to marauding." At Smolensk, too, he judged correctly that the French might outflank us, as they had large forces. "But he could not understand this," cried Prince Andrew in a shrill voice that seemed to escape him involuntarily. "He could not understand that there, for the first time, we were fighting for Russian soil, and that there was a spirit in the men such as I had never seen before, that we had held the French for 2 days, and that success had increased our strength tenfold. He ordered us to retreat, and all our efforts and losses went for nothing. He had no thought of betraying us. He tried to do the best he could. He thought of everything, and that's why he is unsuitable. He is unsuitable now just because he plans out everything very thoroughly and accurately, as every German has to. How can I explain? Well, say your father has a German valet, and he is a splendid valet and satisfies your father's requirements better than you could. Then it's all right to like him, sir. But if your father is mortally sick, you will send a valet away and attend to your father with your own unpracticed, awkward hands, and will soothe him better than a skilled man-who stranger could. So it has been with Barclay. While Russian was well, a foreigner could serve her and be a splendid minister. But as soon as she is in danger, she needs one of her own kin. But in your club, they have been making him out a traitor. They slander him as a traitor, and the only result will be that afterwards, ashamed of their false accusations, they will make him out a hero or a genius instead of a traitor, and that will be still more unjust. He is an honest, and a very punctilious German. And they say he is a skillful commander, rejoined Pierre. I don't understand what is meant by a skillful commander, replied Prince Andrew ironically. A skillful commander, replied Pierre. Why, one who foresees all contingencies and foresees the adversary's intentions. But that's impossible, said Prince Andrew, as if it were a matter settled long ago. Pierre looked at him in surprise. And yet they say that the war is like a game of chess, he remarked. Yes, replied Prince Andrew, but with this little difference, that in chess you may think over each move as long as you please, and there are no limit for time. And with this difference too, that a knight is always stronger than a pawn, and 2 pawns are always stronger than 1, while in war a battalion is sometimes stronger than a division, and sometimes weaker than a company. The relative strength of bodies of troops can never be known to anyone. Believe me, he went on, if things depended on arrangements made by the staff, I could be there making arrangements. But instead of that, I have the honor to serve here in the regiment with these gentlemen, and I consider that on us tomorrow's battle would depend not on those others. Success never depends, and never will depend, on position or equipment or even on numbers, and least of all on position. But on what then? On the feeling that is in me and in him. He pointed to Timókhin, and in each soldier. Prince Andrew glanced at Timókhin, who looked at his commander in alarm and bewilderment. In contrast with his former reticent taciturnity, Prince Andrew now seemed excited. He could apparently not refrain from expressing the thoughts that had suddenly occurred to him. A battle is won by those who firmly resolve to win it. Why did we lose the battle at Austerlitz? The French losses were almost equal to ours, but very early we said to ourselves that we were losing the battle, and we did lose it. And we said so because we had nothing to fight for there. We wanted to get away from the battlefield as soon as we could. We've lost, so let us run. And we ran. And if we had not said that till the evening, heaven knows what might not have happened. But tomorrow we shan't say it. You talk about our position, the left flank weak and the right flank too extended. We went on. That's all nonsense. There's nothing of the kind. But what awaits us tomorrow? 100,000,000 most diverse chances, which will be decided on the instant by the fact that our man or theirs run or do not run, and that this man or that man is killed. But all that is being done at present is only play. The fact is that those men with whom you have ridden around the position not only do not help matters, but hinder. They are only concerned with their own petty interests, said Pierre reproachfully. At such moment, Prince Andrew repeated, to them it is only a moment affording opportunities to undermine a rival and obtain an extra cross or ribbon. For me, tomorrow means this. The Russian army of 100,000 and the French army of 100,000 have met to fight, and the thing is that these 200,000 men will fight, and the side that fights more fiercely and spare itself least will win. And if you like, I will tell you that whatever happens, and whatever models those at the top may make, we shall win tomorrow's battle. Tomorrow, happen what may, we shall win. There now, your Excellency, that's the truth, the real truth, said Timókhin, who would spare himself now. The soldier in my battalion, believe me, wouldn't drink their vodka. It's not the day for that, they say. All were silent. The officers rose. Prince Andrew went out of the shed with them, giving final orders to the adjutant. After they had gone, Pierre approached Prince Andrew, and was about to start a conversation when they heard the clatter of 3 horses' hoofs on the road not far from the shed. And looking in that direction, Prince Andrew recognized Wozzegan and Clausewitz, accompanied by a Cossack. the road closed by continuing to converse, and Prince Andrew involuntarily heard these words. The war must be extended widely. I cannot sufficiently commend that view. Oh yes, the only aim is to weaken the enemy, so of course one cannot take into account the loss of private individuals. Oh no, agreed the others. Extend widely, said Prince Andrew with an angry snout, when they had ridden past. In that extent were my father, son, and sister at Bald Hills. Thou shalt the same to him. That's what I was saying to you. Those German gentlemen won't win the battle tomorrow, but will only take out the mess they can, because they have nothing in their German heads but the theories not worth an empty eggshell, and heaven in their hearts, the one thing needed tomorrow that the witch Timokhin has. They have yielded up all Europe to him, and have now come to teach us. Fine teachers. And again his voice grew shrill. So you think we shall win tomorrow's battle? Asked the peer. Yes, yes, answered the Prince Andrew absently. One thing I would do if I had the power, he began again. I would not take prisoners. Why take prisoners? It's chivalry. The French has destroyed my home, and are on their way to destroy Moscow. They have outraged and are outraging me every moment. They are my enemies. In my opinion, they are all criminals. And so thinks Timokhin and the whole army. They should be executed. Since they are my foes, they cannot be my friends. Whatever may have been said at Tilsit. Yes, yes, muttered Pierre, looking with shining eyes at Prince Andrew. I quite agree with you. The question that had perturbed Pierre on the Mozhask hill and all that day now seemed to him quite clear and completely solved. He now understood the whole meaning and importance of this war and of the impending battle. All that he had seen that day, all the significant and stirred expression on the faces he had seen in passing, were lit up for him by a new light. He understood that the latent heat, as they say in physics, of patriotism which was present in all these men he had seen, and this explained to him why they all prepared for death calmly, and as it were light-heartedly, not taking prisoners. Prince Andrew continued, that by itself would quite change the whole war, and make it less cruel. As it is we have played at war. That's worthwhile. We play at magnanimity and all that stuff. Such magnanimity and sensibility are like the magnanimity and sensibility of a lady who faints when she sees a calf being killed. She is so kind-hearted that she can't look at the blood, but enjoys eating the calf served up with sauce. They talk to us of rules of war, of chivalry, of flags of truce, of mercy to the unfortunate, and so on. It's all rubbish. I saw chivalries and flags of truce in 1805. They humbugged us, and we humbugged them. They plunder other people's houses, issue false paper money, and worst of all, they kill my children and my father, and then talk of rules of war and magnanimity to foes. Take no prisoners, but kill and be killed. He who has come to this as I've through the same sufferings. Prince Andrew, who had felt it was all the same to him, whether or not Moscow was taken as Smolensk had been, was suddenly checked in his speech by an unexpected cramp in his throat. He paced up and down a few times in silence, but his eyes glittered feverishly, and his lips quivered as he began speaking. If there was none of this magnanimity in war, we should go to war only when it was worth while going to certain death, as now. Then there would not be war, because Paul Ivanovitch has offended Michael Ivanovitch, and when there was a war like this one, it would be a war. And then the determination of the troops would be quite different. Then all these Westphalians and Hessians whom Napoleon is leading would not follow him into Russia. And we should not go to fight in Austria and Prussia without knowing why. War is not courtesy, but the most horrible thing in life, and we ought to understand that, and not play at war. We ought to accept this terrible necessity sternly and seriously. It all lies in that. Get rid of falsehood, and let war be war, not a game, as it is now. War is the favorite pastime of the idle and the frivolous. The military calling is the most highly honored. But what is war? What is needed for success in warfare? What are the habits of military? The aim of war is murder. The methods of war are spying, treachery, and their encouragement. The ruin of a country's inhabitants, robbing them, or stealing to provision the army, and frauds and falsehood termed military craft. The habits of the military class are the absence of freedom, that is, discipline, idleness, ignorance, cruelty, debauchery, and drunkenness. And in spite of all this, it is the highest class, respected by everyone. All the kings, except the Chinese, wear military uniforms, and he who kills most people receives the highest rewards. They meet as we shall meet tomorrow, to murder one another. They kill and maim tens of thousands, and they have thanksgiving service for having killed so many people. They even exaggerate the number, and they announce a victory, supposing that the more people they have killed, the greater their achievement. How does God above look at them and hear them? Exclaimed Prince Andrew in a shrill and piercing voice. Ah, my friends, it has of late become hard for me to live. I see that I have begun to understand too much, and it doesn't do for man to taste of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Ah, well, it is now for long, he added. However, you're sleepy, and it's time for me to sleep. Go back to Gorky, said Prince Andrew suddenly. Oh no, Pierre replied, looking at Prince Andrew with frightened, compassionate eyes. Go, go, before a battle one must have one's sleep out, repeated Prince Andrew. He came quickly up to Pierre and embraced and kissed him. Goodbye, be off, he shouted, whether we meet again or not, and turning away hurriedly, he entered the shed. It was already dark, and Pierre could not make out whether the expression of Prince Andrew's face was angry or tender. For some time he stood in silence, whether he should follow him or go away. No, he does not want it, Pierre concluded, and I know that this is our last meeting. He sighed deeply and rode back to Gorky. On re-entering the shed, Prince Andrew lay down a rug, but he could not sleep. He closed his eyes. One picture succeeded another in his imagination. On one of them he dwelt long and joyfully. He vividly recalled the evening in Petersburg. Natasha, with animated and excited face, was telling him how she had gone to look for mushrooms the previous summer and had lost her way in the big forest. She incoherently described the depths of the forest, her feelings, and the talk with the beekeeper she met, and constantly interrupted her story to say, "No, I can't, I'm not telling it right. No, you don't understand," though he encouraged her by saying that he did understand, and he really had understood all she wanted to say. But Natasha was not satisfied with her own words. She felt that they did not convey the passionately poetic. Natasha was not satisfied with her own words. She felt that they did not convey the passionately poetic feeling she had experienced that day, and wished to convey. He was such a delightful old man, and it was so dark in the forest, and he had such kind. No, I can't describe it, she had said, flushed and excited. Prince Andrew smiled now, the same happy smile as then when he had looked into her eyes. I understood her, he thought. I not only understood her, but it was just the inner, spiritual force, that sincerity, that frankness of soul, that very soul of hers, which seemed to be fettered by her body. It was in that soul I loved in her, loved so strongly and happily. And suddenly he remembered how his love had ended. He did not need anything of that kind. He neither saw nor understood anything of the sort. He only saw in her pretty and fresh young girl, with whom he did not deign to unite his fate, an eye, and he is still alive and gay. Prince Andrew jumped up as if someone had burned him, and again began pacing up and down in front of the shed. End of chapter 25.